kind of wish they made one of these with like the middle finger was the pointer instead. Okay, don't laugh, but I have a piece of wire, a 2x4 wedged against the ceiling, a ratchet strap going around the outside of the cab, and a piece of bent up weld rod holding this in over here. So that's how I got this piece in, and the issue I've run into is this thing is pretty much damn near perfect running down the A-pillar. Everything looks good. The only problem is when you look down, this guy is way inside of where this is. So what I'm gonna have to do is let this portion roll out a hair till it hits this, and I'll do that with the laser, which I'll laser set up now across the front frame rail in the center, and that basically shows me, you can see that green line. I made a mark on it. I'm going to trim that off in the saw, let it roll out a little further. So what I have to do is I'll shoot the laser right to the center up here, probably right in the crack right there, and then I'll roll the laser so that it shoots a straight line into the dead center of this tube right here, and then come up here, and that's where this thing is gonna have to roll out to the right to catch it, which, as much as this thing is so fucking tits right now, but it's not gonna work like that. But, oh well, it's more progress. Oh, and that Gorilla Glue sucks. I did what probably anyone does, and I set this piece in a spot that I thought wasn't so good to set it in, but I'm like, it'll be fine. I turned around and then I walked back by and I accidentally kicked it and it broke in half, and then the Gorilla Glue, no matter how much I trimmed off, the Gorilla Glue would not hold it together anymore. I don't know why. So I ran out and bought a plastic welder, and plastic welders worked wonders. So I will just use that from now on. And yeah, so now I'll get this set up, roll that out, and see actually where this is actually going to sit. It's amazing this stuff you can get to figure this out, because my weld filler rod that I had bent wouldn't work, so I have a bolt with an extra washer on it, and it somehow is jammed in there to hold it. And what I was talking about is when you put that right in the center of the tube and run down and everything lines up, that's the plane this is going to get bent on. So what you need to do now is I will mark the bottom side of this, and then come back over here, set the laser up, shoot back across here, and that will give me the intersection point of where this thing has to be cut. And then I'll know, based on the line that's on the bottom, the plane that it needs to be cut on. So let me go ahead and do that, and hopefully we'll have this last piece right here. Yeah, and if you see, the bar sticks out a little more than I wanted it to off the A-pillar. But then again, that's how it is. And another thing to not forget is it sits great here. But remember, we checked this, it was 37 degrees to begin with, so that's what we made our bend at. But now that this is in place, I've taken all my measurements to cut this. Don't assume that this thing is still sitting at 37 degrees. So what you want to do is you want to double check this. Whatever this is sitting at, you're going to minus that from 90, and that's going to give you your final bend down here for what that needs to be. So I'll do that and see how close this thing is, and then go from there. It's funny, I needed something to hold this up, and I originally made this, which it's a C-clamp with just a piece of box steel welded to it, square tube welded to it, with a piece of stainless angle over here with clean room tape on it, and this was for holding motorcycle shocks when you're rebuilding them. So it actually worked great for this because I needed something to hold this while I rolled it around to get it where I needed it to find my marks and find the degrees that I need on this. So what I'll do here is explain. When I mentioned the bend plane, when I had the laser shot right up this, if you can see that little crow's foot right there, it's right here, that's the bend plane. So that's where this thing is going to sit in the bender to get bent, basically. But what you need to do is you need to have this point be on the side, and the way you make sure it's perfectly on the side is you take the diameter of whatever you're working with, which is 1 5/8, you divide it by 2. What that's going to do is basically give you the halfway point, which is 13/16. And then what you do is you set up a tri-square, you set it up on 13/16, you put this on top, and instead of trying to find it on this, what you want to do is the end of your rule right here, when it's sitting on the crow's foot, should be level on top. And that's pretty damn close right there. So now you know the bend plane that this is going to get bent on is set. The next thing you do is you come back to your piece that's rolled down, and then you measure this degree, and it's 14, what was it, 14.1 or 14.2, I think. You gotta watch with this PVC because it's a little flimsy, so if you get a reading up here, 14.2, 14.1, 14.4, but then it gets a little flimsy on that 14.3, so I'm just gonna go with, 14 degrees should be close enough. 14.2, yeah. So now you know that when you bend this piece in a bender, when you bend this bend, this is going to have to roll down 14 degrees before you make your next bend. And it's basically flip-flopped on the other side. You'll bend the first bend, but it'll roll up, and you'll bend your second bend, and that'll give you the two legs on both sides of the cab. So once you've figured out one side, thankfully the other side's already done, you just have to reverse it. But you have to remember to reverse it, because if you don't and you bend it, then you have a 7 or 8 foot piece of DOM steel that gets thrown in the garbage. Now you might be able to salvage a few 1 foot pieces or something like that out of it. So using this PVC to make a template is a lot cheaper. I think these two, I bought 2 pieces, I think they were 5 foot, 4 foot long, something like that, and they were $3 or $4 a piece. So it's a lot more cost effective to make a screwed up cut on a few of these and get it right, versus you spend, I think in just the 44 feet tube I have so far, it was $300 and something. So yeah, you don't want to screw up on the steel, you want to screw up on the PVC. So next, what I have to do, which is going to be a hard part on this, is I have to have, I set this up, no, it's not going to be a hard part, I'm thinking crazy. I will set this up in the miter saw, and what I have to do is somehow clamp it in so it's a little bit loose, roll that piece down 14 degrees, and then make my miter cut on this, and that'll give me the final piece where this will match up and give me my leg that runs down to the outrigger for the driver's side A-pillar. So I will get that set up now. Another thing I didn't mention is, after you've figured out your side and top, well, you figured out the side, the degrees that thing's got to sit at for this to get bent. Well, then this was the line. This was the line that the laser was shooting straight up and down, and where that needs to land is that needs to hit right in the middle of the top, So the easiest way to figure that out is, because this only has a bubble on top, what you do is you take a scale or something and you measure from the, if you like the 90 right there where the tri-square meets the rule, and you measure out 13/16 and you put a little tiny mark on that, and then when you hold this level, that'll give you your spot up top, and you basically intersect those two right there, and that's where the cut has to be made. So I'll mark it up real quick and show you. And there you can see the center mark, or the top of the tube. So even though this mark is a little bit squiggly, that's where it's at, right there in the middle. So that's what you're looking for right there. That cut is just a hair. That might be a like a 64th off, but we're not worried about that. I was gonna film setting it up, but this clamping system is kind of a pain in the ass. So once I got it nailed, I decided to just cut it and get it over with. So what I'm gonna do is, this table's already set up at 0 because it was a hair out. So I set this at 0 to set the roll on that. I'm just gonna glue this thing, set the other piece up right here, and plastic weld this thing together right here, because that'll give me the exact dimension I need to do that. So I don't have to undo it and then figure out, then take it over and do anything and have to level two things. I already have a flat surface right here I can use. And that should hold it. So I can take it out and roll it and do the other side. So there it is. You can see it run up. It peaks about right there, you can see it, and then it goes in and it cuts back. And that is how you manually make your A-pillar bar. Sits in there pretty good. I mean, the only thing, like I said, is it sits off the windshield, or off the A-pillar, like 1.5 inches, 2 inches, something like that, but whatever. So yeah, the thing looks pretty tidy. Now what you need to do is, I will have to measure and figure out, obviously I'm gonna start bending from this end. So I will figure out, I'll make a template that will lay over this, and it will show me where my bend's gonna start. And then I'll come down here and put another template here, and it'll show me where my bend's gonna start here. And the only thing I have to do to not screw this up, because this isn't done yet, it's not guaranteed, is bend the first bend, roll it, Your first bend, it doesn't matter which way you roll it, up or down, you're 14 degrees. It's either gonna come out for the left or the right. That's not important. Your second bend is what's important. So if you bend the first one wrong, that's fine. All you have to do is bend the second one the opposite. But if you bend the first one one way and you bend the second one the same way, then you have a garbage piece of tube. So just remember that. And if you have any questions about this, like I say in all these, I hope I didn't lose anybody along the way of trying to figure this stuff out. And yeah, I think that's it. I think so. Looks kind of weird from over here. This looks like a PVC roll cage. And I don't know if you can see, but when we got this thing all finished, there's about a 1/4-inch gap up there on the where the A-pillar bar ties in. And like I said before, that piece, when you start that bend over here, that piece will be left like 1 inch long. From whatever the dimension I have from here to the first bend, that'll be left 1 inch long. And then also that guy down there will be left 1 inch long, and it'll basically be trimming back to fit. That way you have an out. And you basically trim the bar to fit, and you don't just make your cuts dead on first, because also that cut up top there is going to have a notch in it. So my dimension to where it hits the cage is the bottom of the notch, and that's another thing to set up for and figure out the angle that notch has got to be in, because that notch is in the angle, that notch is in a bend. So you'll be able to notch it the way the hoop goes, but then you'll have to do some trimming out on the bottom side, on the, they call it the throat side. The throat is the inside, the heel is the outside of a bend. So you will have to do some trimming on the throat side to get it to fit. So again, probably even when I notch it, I'll notch it about 1/8 inch long and then trim the whole thing back. That way, even if there is a gap up top on the heel side, as I trim the bottom side out, it'll close up the top and it'll give me 0 gaps, because I'm pretty sure I'm just gonna TIG weld this whole cage in here. I'm not gonna MIG weld it. And that's it.